Hello, class. I hope you're doing well. All right, we're going to be doing our final module for the semester. It's module 13. And this will be it. So let's see here. That means that we have next Wednesday, that is the 30th of November, and the 7th of December before finals week, which is going to be from the 12th to the 18th of December. So what we're going to do for the next 2 weeks, so that means on the 30th and the 7th of December, is pretty much just go over any questions you have on the final project. I will give you some more help when it comes to that. So we'll go over the endpoints you're going to need for that project and sort of how to approach creating those endpoints. And whatnot. So that's going to be the plan. I also am going to include the application deployment component into today's Zoom. And that is something I usually would do next week. However, since Heroku's free hosting service is going to end on the 28th, which is next Monday, I won't have the ability to show you how that's done. So I'm going to try to include that. Well, I'm not going to try to include it. I will include it in today's Zoom lecture. Just a note on that is that that's not a requirement for this class as far as as far as what's included. So that's just going to be for your information in case you want to deploy your own application and see how to go about it. It's just going to be for that. Your assignment for this week is not going to include application deployment. It is not a requirement. So I'm probably going to go past 8 o'clock today. Will most likely end at 8:30. So just wanted to make a note of that. And this week is Thanksgiving, so I hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving. I know I need some time off, so I'll be out beginning tomorrow, and I'll be back on Monday, 20th. All right. So the last module, module 13, we are going to be covering AngularJS views, routing, and templates. Oh, something else I also want to mention is I have extended the due date for this week's lab assignment to not next Wednesday, but the following Wednesday. That gives you an extra 3 days because we'll be off for Thursday and Friday. So, all right, let's get started on templating and views. All right. 1 second. Okay, so the concept of views is, well, goes back to the concept of a page in a website. As we know by now, we're not developing websites in this class, so we're developing web applications. So a a view in an application is, you can think of it as not, you can kind of think of it as a page, but it's not really called, it's not really a page. It's just whatever UI components uh, are for that task that you're trying to do in the application. Um, we can call each one of those a view. So for example, you have your home view, right? So when you load your application, the first thing you see is going to be, we can refer to as the home view. Then you might have a login view. So if your application requires users to log in, and they'll click on a link for the login, and your login view would be displayed. Right, so each one of those is called a view, not called a page. The reason why it's not called a page is because we are developing single page applications. So we have a single page, right? One page, but then how do we try to get more pages into our single page applications? Well, we do that with views. Also, when it comes to views, we also want to have this concept called a template. And this concept we have seen. So we have a comment header. We have a comment footer, right? And then we have we'll call this the main body. So the idea behind this is all the common links and logos and text for your application will live either in the header or the footer, right? So these will not change, more or less, right? They stay the same. And when you change the different views, you want those views to be loaded in the main area here, right? So we're going to be learning about how that's achieved. All right. In AngularJS, as we know, we have the MVC MVC auto on the client that we use, and the view so far, what we have used is the main index, right? We have this main index, and we have said the body of the index, right? That's our view, right? This area here, we say that this is our view. Hey there, Roger. So, yeah, so far we have created one index, and our view, we've just had a single view, right? That was the main body of our page, right? We said that was the view. However, if we want to create the different views using this here, where we have a common header, a common footer, and a main area where the content changes, what we have to do now is say that the index file, this single page application, is going to only have the common header and the common footer. That's all this index is going to have in it. Common header, common footer, things that don't necessarily change from view to view. And then for this main area here, what we're going to do is create a views folder. And in the views folder, for example, we might have a home view. So we'll call that home.html. We might have a login view. So we'll call that login.html, so on and so forth. So the idea here is that when we want to log in, or when we load our single page application, what we want in this main body area when the application loads is we want this home HTML. So we want this to be injected into the main area here. And when we change the view, let's say we have a login button here. When we click on this login button, we want this main body area to be changed to this HTML or this view. So we want that view to be injected into the main area. Now you might ask, well, is this still considered a single page application, even though we have different HTML files or different views? And the answer is yes, it's still considered a single page application. What really defines a single page application is the HTTP request to load the application. So in a single page application, we have one initial HTTP request that your web browser will make that loads the application. From that point forward, we can use the Ajax technology to pull information from a remote server and replace parts of that page. Okay, so we are still in a single page application, right? Because we're not really doing a new request for a new page, right? If you think of the old days, right, where each page was in its own HTML file, right, you would have index.html, and then you might have like about.html, and so on and so forth. When you loaded the index, the main site, your main website will load. And then when you clicked on the about link, your web browser will do a completely new request to load this HTML file, right? So in this case, this is not a single page application. Right? But here, what we're going to be doing is we're going to have AngularJS automatically inject the HTML that's inside of these HTML files, which we're going to call each one of them a view, into an area of our main page, which is in the index here. All right.
Gee, where is everyone?
Oh, that's a good question, Roger. I think since I moved the lecture for Tuesday, maybe not all students were able to see that. So that's probably the reason why.
I forwarded the email. I learned to everything is forwarded on these junior college sites, so I get them.
Oh, yeah. Because if you don't forward it, then you have to go in and check your actual student email each time, right? Yeah, that's a smart thing to do. All right. Okay, so we're going to be doing that with AngularJS. Now, one more thing I want to mention is about these views. How does AngularJS load these views? Well, it turns out that it uses an existing feature of an HTML page that you may have used in the past. It's been there pretty much since the beginning. It's a very old feature of HTML, and that is called name. It's called named anchors. Okay, so what are named anchors? We've all actually used them before. I'm sure we've all used them before. You may have kind of seen how they work as well. For example, you might have loaded a page and you have some table of contents, right? You have some table of contents, and each one of these is a link. And when you click on one of these links, what ends up happening is the page automatically scrolls down to that area, right? So if this was item number 1, right, and this is item number 1 here, when you clicked on this link, instead of changing the page, what it does is it simply scrolls down to number 1 being at the top of the page, right? And the way this works is on your URL, on the page's URL, we can add a hash symbol at the end of it, like that, and then the name would go there, right? So, for example, this link here could have an href like that, and it'll be something like pound, let's say chapter 1. That would be the link URL for this A element here. And again, and then what we would do down here is we would create another A, and we would give this a name, and the name would be chapter 1, like that. And what ends up happening is when you click on this link, what it does is simply appends this pound name to the URL. And when it does that, there is an event that goes off that then will automatically scroll down to that A tag on the page with that same name. So we can actually see this in Replit. If we take a look at Replit's URL, you will see that it has a pound here, right, and index.html, right? And if we don't have any other page here, but let's just create a test.html page. And if we click on that, or if that's loaded, you'll see that the link includes test.html. And when we change it, it includes again index.html. So what AngularJS and what Replit is doing here is it's using these to store some state, right? It's storing some state in the URL itself. So when the page loads, it reads this on the client, right, to know which page needs to be displayed, or which, I'm sorry, not page, which HTML file or which code file should be the default when the application gets loaded. Something else to keep in mind here is that this information that comes after that pound symbol is not sent to the server. So this is a client side thing only. Like the server does not get this pound index.html. So when I make a request to this URL, the part that gets sent to the server is just this part here, to that pound symbol. And then the pound symbol and whatever comes after that pound symbol is a client side only, and it can be used by the client. Okay, so how does this apply to views and and AngularJS? Well, turns out that what AngularJS does is it uses these named anchors in a very clever way. What it does is it does this. So let's say you have a home view, or let's say, yeah, so you have a home view. The URL for that home view is going to be part of the application's URL. So you might have something like HTTPS, something like myapp.com/. Now you might see a URL at the end that looks like this: !/about, let's say. And you might have seen these kind of URLs before in the past. That's a telltale sign that that application is created using Angular IS, if you see this in the URL. So the way AngularJS is using these is by taking a look to see what comes after the pound, and this exclamation and the / is actually a name. It's just part of this name. It's not a path in the URL. So that's important to know, because if you don't know that whatever comes after the pound symbol is not part of the URL that gets sent to the server, you might assume that, well, I am requesting the about, right, about page, or that about is part of this URL that gets sent to the server. That's not the case here. What gets sent to the server, if we do a GET request to this URL, is only the dot part there. Right? Whatever comes after that this pound symbol is a client component, and the reason why we have a / is to give the illusion to the client that we have an actual path to a page. However, this is not a path to a page. What this is doing is this is going to load your main application by going to this URL. Then once this URL loads, the client is then going to read what comes after the pound, and it's going to see that you want to load the about view, and that about view is going to be injected into the page using Ajax. That's how this is going to be used. All right. So that's important to keep in mind, because, like I said, if you see a URL like this, it's very easy to get confused here and think, oh, we are trying to request something from the server that's called about, and that's not the case, right? The only part that gets sent to the server is just this part of the URL. Whatever comes after this pound symbol is just the name. Okay. So this is the default convention that these client-side technology will use, is this exclamation and then a / like that. Okay. Okay. I think I made that clear, hopefully. So let's actually see this. So we're going to do an example. Okay, so let's start an AngularJS application. This is a blank AngularJS application. And we already have the AngularJS core script in here. However, we're going to need another script, because this views idea is not in the core. Okay, what we have here, this is just a core. So this does not include that part. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to angularjs.org, and we're going to click on download. And then we're going to click on browse additional modules. And this is going to come up, and we want this ng route min.js. This is the file that we want there. So I'm going to copy this link, and we're then going to include that in our application. So that's the link for the script. And that's it. Okay. So make a note of that. So this is Angular JS routing view template script. Okay, so let's go ahead and add the Angular JS tags to this application. So ng app, in this main body, we are still going to have our main controller. So ng controller equals main controller. And let's go to the script area. And we will create our AngularJS instance. So let my app Angular module my app. Now, in the past, we have included this empty array. So now what we need to do is, since we imported this script, it's not enough. We have to pass what we want to include in our module in here. And that for this, the name of this is ng route. So we're going to include ng route in this array. Again, this is in this script here. If we don't include the script, this won't work. If we include the script and we do not include this, it won't work, right? So we include the script and we include this ng route in this array. So let me make a note of that here. So ng route brings in the routing functionality, routing view functionality. All right, and let's put our main controller. So my app dot my app dot controller, main controller, and let's bring in the scope service, and that's it. All right. So let me just run this, make sure I get no errors. Okay, that's good. Okay, so what this controller here and this main body, along with this controller, are going to be used for is the common parts of our application, right? So if you remember the header, the header, right? Those don't change. That's what this main controller is going to be for. And this index file, main index file as well. Okay, so we need to now include those common parts of our application in this index file here. So what we're going to do is create a container. Okay. And we make a comment here. So this is going to be the common header section. Let's just create a gender font here. And we will just put an H2 in here. And we'll just put common header. And we want a common footer as well. So make a note of that. Common footer section. Div class generate line. And in the common footer, let's just make put a small element here, and we'll just do copyright 2022 CS157 something. So let's load this, and so we see a common header and this header area down there. So how do we let AngularJS now know that our different views need to be injected in a certain location, right? So the way we do that is we do that by creating a div and just putting ng view like that in this div. Okay. So by putting this ng view in this div, this is where our views that we're going to have, right? Login, about, the actual application views. All those views are going to be injected inside of this div, right, when we request that view. Right? So this is just the placeholder. Let me also put this in a div with a class of Jumbotron, just so things look sort of consistent. So let me make a note of that here. So this is the view area. And this here is, this is where all of our views are going to be injected. And when we say injected, what we really mean here is the client-side framework is going to do an AJAX request to an HTML page. It's going to take that HTML and it's going to assign that HTML inside of this div here, right? In a sense, it's going to inject that HTML file inside of this div. All right. Okay, so by just doing this, we're not going to get anything to really happen. What we need to do now is we need to let the framework know which path name will map to which view. Right, so when we go to for example, about, right? The client side framework needs to know that if the client requests this view about, which view file it needs to inject inside of that div, right? Inside of this div. So that's what we're going to do next. So right above our controller, so this needs to be pretty much at the top, right? As soon as we create our application, we need to let AngularJS know about this. So I'm going to make a note here. So this is the view mapping, or we'll call this the route view mappings. And we're going to do that by referring to my app.config. And this config is going to have a callback function, and that callback function is going to inject the service name called the route provider. Okay. Now that we have this the route provider, we let it know how to act when certain views are requested. So we refer to route provider, and we're going to use this syntax of when. So when, and this first map we're going to create is a slash. So when we are requesting the main page or the home page, we could say, right? We're going to have an object. Let me make a comment here. So this is the home view. And the home view is going to have a URL of that, right? Pound exclamation slash. Now, when we say put slash here, what we are referring to is this slash here. So the name that we define in this when is the part that comes after this exclamation. Okay, so don't count that exclamation. It's whatever comes after that. Okay, so slash means that. When that's the case, then we want our template URL to be, and we're going to actually create this. We haven't yet. So we're going to create a views folder, and we want that to be called home.html. And at the same time, we know that a view needs to have a controller, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to define that controller. So we're going to say the controller for this view is going to be called home controller. Okay, so this is the view, and this is the name of controller for this view. I'm going to need a slash there. Okay, so let's make this work. And for this to work, we need to do two things. First, we need to create this index, this home.html file, and we need to create a home controller. Okay. So let's start to create these folders. We're going to have a views folder, and we're also going to have a controllers folder. All right, so views controller, and in the views, we're going to add file, and we're going to add this home.html. And in the home.html, we can just put whatever HTML that we want to load for this view. So let's just create a div with an alert. And we'll put something like, welcome to the home view. And then we'll add some more stuff into it. Okay, so now we need to create the home controller. So let's create a file in the controllers called, we can call it what we want. It's not really important. Let's call it home.js. So the name of the script file will correspond to the name of the view. Right? Home.js is going to be the controller for our home.html, which is the view. Right? So in our home controller, we can refer to our app instance and just define our home controller. Controller function scope. And that's all we really need for that. All right, if I did everything correctly, when I run this application, we should see this HTML, this alert with welcome to the home view be displayed in this area here. So let's see what happens. And it does. Welcome to the home view. So as you can see, this welcome to the home view is not in our main index file, right? This is being dynamically injected once we load the application. If we take a look at the URL for this application, I'm going to do that by opening up, oh, I forgot one thing. So it is complaining about not being able to find a home controller. Even though I've created a file called home.js, I need to import that file in the main index. So we're going to go down here. We are going to say this area is going to be our controllers. Oops. And our controllers, we're going to script source and controllers slash home.js. Okay, this is going to be our home controller. Okay, so we do need to import that script file inside of our main index. So let's run it, and we no longer have an error. Okay, so let's load this in a new window. Okay, you're going to see it automatically added this pound exclamation slash at the end. Right, so this is to let the framework know which view that we are currently on. Right, so this is the home view, pound exclamation slash. Now let's take a look at what's going on when this page loads. So I'm going to open up my DevTools, and we're going to load this page. And you're going to see the main GET request that we have for the page is just going to send our main HTML that does not have anything in this main area, right? If you take a look at the raw HTML, you'll see that it is exactly what we have in that file, right? We have this ng view, right? It does not have anything in there. We have our route provider object that tells us where things are, and we have our main controller. But now what's going on is once we load this page, right, the framework is then going to dynamically do a request to the home.html, and we can see that request by going to the XHR request. So these are the AJAX requests. And if we go to the AJAX request, we see that we have one AJAX request, and that request is to home.html. Right? And when we click on that, all we see is welcome to the home view. And it's just that home.html. So the framework is going out doing the request to get the HTML file, and then what it's doing is it's taking the HTML that's in that file and injecting it in this area here, right? So then we can see it. All right, if that makes sense. Let me do another drawing one last time. Hopefully there's still any confusion. This will clear things up. Okay, so we have our application here. We have a common header. This common header is defined right over here, right, in this index file. We have a common footer that's defined in this index file. And we have this common main content area right over here, which is initially defined by an empty div. Right? When we load the application for the first time, it's going to be at the root of that application, right? It's going to be a slash. And what AngularJS is going to do then is unfortunately, we can't see it, we have to scroll down, is that it's going to see that if the client is requesting the root, it needs to go out and make a request to get the home.html and inject that HTML where we have the ng view. So it'll go out and get this home.html, and that home.html will be then injected into that main area. So then we see it. And the controller for this view is inside of this home.js. All right. Okay. All right, so let's create another view. So we will go to the steps of how that's done. All right, so if we want to create another view, we'll do another when. Right, so when we request the about view, right, now this view is going to be accessed by the link of pound exclamation slash about. Right? So that means that if we append this to the URL, it'll automatically load this view. So we'll put template URL, and that's going to be to our views folder, and we'll call this about.html. And then we want the controller to be about controller. All right, and let's go ahead and add that script. So we're going to need an about.js. That. We are going to need a about.html. And what we do is we'll just grab the HTML there and change this theme a little bit so we can see it change. Morning and welcome to the about view. And we're going to need a about controller. So about.js. We're going to repeat at this point, right? So we're going to grab the home controller and just change it to about. All right, so now if you load the page, you're not going to see anything, you're not going to see the about. So now the question is, how do we get the about view to load? Remember, the way these views load all have to do with the URL. It's all connected to the URL. So that means that if we change the URL to pound exclamation slash about, if we just change the URL to this, that's going to cause the framework to load that view. Should be pretty simple, right? So let's say we want to be able to go to the about view in this common header area. So let's go ahead to the common header area. And what we'll do is let's create an href. And that href is going to be to the URL of pound exclamation slash about. Okay. And let's just put the name to be about. And we need a way to get back to the home view. So let's create one without the about, right? Just pound exclamation slash, and that's going to be our home view. Okay, so let's load the application. Click on the about, and as you see, we get the about view to load. We click back home, you get the home view. if we take a look at the application in a new tab, keep note of the URL up here. When we click about, you see that we get !about. When we click home, you get the overview. You can also put about right in the URL, hit enter, and the about view will be displayed. So these views are all controlled using the URL. If you want to change the view, you append a new view name to the URL using this !/ and that view will load. All right. Okay, so we also want to be able to change the views in the controller, right? Because what we have done so far is we've been able to change views in the HTML by just putting an href right in there, right? And we put the link name, I'm sorry, not the link name, the view name, and that causes the view to change. However, you might also want to be able to change the view in the script file, right? In your controller. So let's go ahead and show you how that's done. Did you have a question?
I'm curious, when I redo that website, this is how I want to do it. So if these views have a lot of stuff in it, say membership pages and pictures, what's the speed of it? Would there be noticeable lag for the
It shouldn't be. No. I mean, it'll just load as soon as it gets the page, right? So when you select that link to load that view, what you want to do is first you want to load not the whole content, because that view is then going to need to do an Ajax request to your APIs to pull the actual information, right? So your view is just going to be the script file, right? The UI components that are going to display that information, but not necessarily the information, right? The information is going to come from your web service. So when you load your view, right, your view is then going to make a request to your web service, pull that information in, and then your view is going to actually display that information. So as far as speed goes, it's however fast your internet speed is, really, right? I mean,
so it'd be the same as the old-fashioned method that I'm using now, no slower. Okay.
It shouldn't be slower. It might be a tad slower because the way you have it right now, that content is that HTML page that's getting sent to the client, all is being created on the server using PHP. Yeah. So PHP is going out, making a request to your MySQL, pulling the information, creating that HTML file, and then it sends that HTML file to the client. That's always going to be a little bit faster because all that is happening on the server. That final HTML is just being sent to the client, and the only work the client needs to do is just display that information. Whereas in this case, we have a single page application where now your client is doing a lot of that work, right? Being able to create that it needs to create that, it needs to really create that HTML on the client, not the server anymore, right? The only thing the server does is just sends it the information, right? If you want the information, I'll give you the information. But once the client has that information, then it's your client-side framework that needs to then create the HTML that goes around that information, right? So that's going to happen on the client, and that's going to depend on the client, whatever is, if the end user is on a slow computer, it might be a little bit slower at that point, right? Because that needs to happen on the client. But again, speed wise, when it comes to just displaying information, it's not going to be affected that much, okay? Because if you use, applications like, Google Maps and Gmail, these are huge applications. You've got a lot of information, a lot of script that needs to run. And if that's pretty fast to you, and that's a large application, just having to load a small amount of information like that, it's not really a huge deal at all.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to be able to change the view in our controllers, right? So what we're going to do is go to the home view and view, and we're going to create a button. And this button is going to have ng click. So when the button is clicked, we want to call the function, let's say, to make it explicit as we can, change view. Okay, we're not here to obscure, right? We're going to change the view when this button is clicked. And button primary. And we're just going to click, we're going to call the button change to about view. Okay, so we have a button in our home view called change to about view. Again, the idea here is when we click on change to about view, we want to be able to change to a new view in our controller. Okay, so that means that we need to handle this event in our controller, this change view event. So we are in our home view. We're going to go in our home controller, right? Home.js. We're going to define that. So we're going to refer to scope dot change view, and that's going to be an anonymous function. Let's make it an arrow function instead, actually. Keep it a little bit more concise. All right. So since all the way views change have to do with the URL, we're going to have to change the URL in this change view handler. Right? And all we're going to do is we're going to refer to the main window object, and we're going to change the location to be that view that we want to load. Right? We want to load the about view. So we change the window location, which is essentially the address of whatever page we're on. And by adding just #/about, it's going to know that it needs to simply append this to the URL. So as soon as this gets appended to our URL, the client-side framework is going to say, hey, the client is trying to request a new view. It's going to go out, get that HTML for the about view, and check that view in the main area. So this is how we can change the view from within a control. Right, so let's see how this works. Okay, so we can change it using that works. We already did that a try, and finally change it by clicking on this about view, and it doesn't work. Okay, so where did I go wrong? Let's see here. We have our home, ng click, change view.
You don't need that exclamation point?
Did I accidentally forget that? Yes, I did. Yes, I do. Thank you for that. Yep. So I forgot.
Trying to pay attention. Since I'm the only one here.
All right. Yeah, that was it. So let's click on it. There we go. So now we're able to change the view from within the controller as well. All right. So one more thing, and that is, how do we pass arguments to our views, right? Comes in handy. Let's say, for example, we want to be able to have a URL that looks something like this. So we have HTTP myapp.com pound exclamation, something like get weather, right? Get weather, and we want to pass in a zip code to this URL, 91342. Now, right? Now we need to do two things. One is we know the view needs to change to this view here. And number two, once the view changes, we need to be able to retrieve the zip code from the view, right? So let's go ahead and do that. Let's clear this out. And what I'll do here is, I'll just do that example that we just did with that URL. So let's come here to our route maps, and we'll do when it's slash other slash. Now we put the zip parameter like that. We put a colon and whatever we want the name of it to be. Right, so colon zip. So this is the other weather view that accepts arguments. Right, so we might have the URL that looks like pound exclamation weather and then 91342. Okay, template URL. It's going to be views weather.html, and our controller is going to be weather. Okay. Rinse and repeat. We're going to need a script file for that. Weather.js. We're going to need a weather.js controller. And we are going to need a view. Weather.html. It's going to be our view. All right. Okay, so let's go to our weather controller, because this is where we're going to have to read that parameter for that URL argument, right? So we're going to do the scope service like we do usually. In addition to the scope service, if we want to read the information in the URL, we're also going to need the route params service. Route params. And the route params is going to contain that information. So if we refer to route params.zip, right, this is going to be that zip code that we have in the URL. Okay. So what we're going to do is, so we'll actually be able to see it on the view itself. If we want to be able to see the zip code that was passed in a view, well, we have to assign it to something in the scope, right? Because the scope is what connects the controller to the view. So we're going to refer to scope, and we'll call it the same thing. We'll store it in a field called zip, and we'll set it equal to the out route params.zip. Okay. So now that the zip code that's read from the URL is in the zip in the scope, we can go to our weather view and display it. So let's create a div, alert primary. Where's the div? And we'll just say weather information for zip code, where we'll then use AngularJS's expression syntax and just put zip in there. So let's click on run. Okay, we don't have a link to that from here, so we can go ahead and add it. So let's go to our main file here, and we'll add that weather view there. Weather. Okay. This might not work. Let me give it a try. Yeah, it's not going to work. So we can go ahead and try it. We click on the other view. The view itself is not going to show. The reason why it's not showing is because the zip parameter that we defined is a required parameter. So we have to have a zip code in here, or something that comes right after, after that. So now if you put 91342, now the view will load. However, it's not showing here. So the actual zip code that we have is not showing that, which tells us there's something wrong with our controller. So let's go and see if we didn't spell something correctly. Weather controller. What did I call it here in the map? Weather controller. Controller weather. Ah, that's what. Oh, that's just good. Weather, that's correct. Where am I going around here? Weather controller. Scope.zip equals route params.zip.
It is not reading the double parentheses as a special
Yeah,
thing.
it's not reading it as special thing, which is usually because of the controller not existing. That's why that will happen.
Is reading it as just regular text.
Regular text, correct. Yeah. Yeah, so let's see what's going on here. Weather controller. Make sure I don't have any spelling mistakes here. Weather zip. We don't see any mistakes here. Okay, let's try it again. Yeah, further information for zip code and zip is not being displayed. Okay, time to debug. All right, so let's do a console log here. And see if we're actually getting this to run. So run it. Load the console. It's not showing anything in the console, which tells us that this is not even loaded.
You didn't put the slash. Oh, never mind. Never mind.
Let me see if it has to do with this route RAM service, maybe. So I'm going to remove that completely. Do this. Oh, okay. Yeah, but the reason why that was not any really do this. I have to do this in a new tab. 12. Ah, we have a syntax error somewhere. AngularJS. Oh, this is in the AngularJS file itself. Angular injector. Something image data. Error injector. Something in the ng view. That's weird. I must have a syntax error. Where is my syntax error? Comma, comma, colon, colon, comma. What's interesting though is that view is displaying, so that means that this part is good. It is able to show us that, but the controller for it is not loaded. It is very strange. Controller JS. Let's do this. Let's put a console log up here. This will tell us, okay, so we do get that top, which means that the file is being loaded by the main index. I see my error. I see my error. I am missing the A. It's route params. I was missing the A completely. P-A-R-A-M-S and P-A-R-A-M-S. Ah, boy. Okay. Let's redo this. So let's load it. Refresh this. And there we go. Weather for 91342. So that's getting it from the URL, right? So if you put something, just a random string in the URL, you get that random string in a view. Okay, so here you'll see that if we exclude the zip code, the view doesn't even load. Which means that the zip code is required in this case. So how do we make it not required? Very simple. We just add a question mark at the end. So by adding a question mark at the end, now the zip code is not required. So if we now load this view without a zip code, it will still load our view, but our zip code will just be undefined. So now we can put the zip code back in and it'll be that one. And we can remove the zip code and the view is still open. Something else that I want to point out here is we can add more than one parameter here as well. So we can do something like let's do entry. That, and we also want this to be not required. So now we have zip and we have punctured. So let's go to our controller and read that from this route params. Country, and then go to our view. and display it. Okay, let's refresh. Okay, so let's put a zip code 91342/US. Now we are able to read both the zip code and the US that we have in the URL. All right, and that is it. One more thing I like to do, it's not something you have to do, but what I like to do as well is I like to move this main controller in the controller's folder as well. That way you don't have any controller code in your index file. Okay. So let's just go ahead and do that real quick. Just add file, main.js, and we're simply going to move this main controller from the main index into this main.js. And you just have to remember to add the script file for that, main.js. Right, so now the only thing our main index file has is it has our common areas, right? Common header, common footer, where our views need to be injected, and our route paths. Okay, I think that is it for this example, at least. Okay, so any questions on this? Oh, let me add one more thing here. So let's say you wanted to include a zip code in one of these links here. Well, it'd be pretty straightforward, right? We're going to go to a main index, and let's say we wanted to include other for 91342. So we can have another link here, weather, and we'll just put /91342/US, and we'll put weather for 91342. So now we'll have a link that goes directly to that view, and it'll include the zip code in the URL as well. All right, that's it for that. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to take our to-do application that we've created and convert it to Angular JS using common header, common footer. We'll also include the ability to create an account and to log in as well. So we're going to have a login view as well as a view to create an account. And then once we're done with that, we're going to actually deploy the application to Heroku. Since Heroku is still free until next week, next Monday, the 28th, I believe. So I'm going to do that before that free service goes away. All right, so let's take our task application that we have been doing in the class. We are at this point where we added Angular JS to the client side, and we have all of our controller for this application in the home, in the main file here. Right? We put it all here. So we're going to now convert this into what we just saw. Okay, so what we're going to do that is we're going to start out by including that script file. So we're going to move that angularjs.org, download modules route the link. We're going to need that script, put that in here. Right, about that. Okay, what do we need to do? We need to create our two folders. So we're going to need the views folder, and we are going to need our controllers folder. All right. What should we do next here? Okay. This needs to move. We can move that later. Let's define our maps. Let's do that. Okay, so that's a good place to start. So we're going to refer to our app instance, config. A callback function, we're going to get back the route provider service. And we're going to first refer to it. So route provider, and then when we have the home view, right, we are going to load a view called home.html. Controller is going to be home controller. And I'm just going to copy and paste this to save some time. All right, so next one is we're going to need the actual application here. So that's going to be under to-dos. So views, to-dos, and to-dos controller. We are going to need our login view. It's going to be under login, HTML, and controller name, login controller. And finally, we're going to need our register. Register.html and the controller register. Okay, now that we have those, let's create them. So we're going to add file. We're going to need home.html. We are going to need reduce.html, login.html, and register.html. Oh, I put these in the wrong place. These are views. So move them into the views. Okay, and the controllers, I'm going to need home.js, todos.js, login.js, and the register.js. And let's move our main controller in there as well. So let's just add another main.js. Okay. So we want to make sure, well, we'll do that trying a little bit. All right, so let's go to our main file, and we're going to have to move, right, this HTML out right here. Right? So let's cut that out. Okay, so that's going to go in our to-dos view. Let's go here. Right, and we also need to move our controller into to-dos controller. So let's do that. So that's going to be this thing we have under main controller. However, we're going to have to rename that. So let me cut that out and go into to-dos. And I have to rename this to to-dos controller. Okay, go back to our index. Okay, so now we have moved all that out. Let's add our script files. Main one first. Oh. All right. We have use and login. We have register. And I'm missing one. Oh. Okay. What are we still missing? We're still missing all the code that goes here. All right. So let's copy and paste again to save some time. I'll grab this part here, and then this is going to be another folder. Login controller. Name. Register. And to do's, we already have that. So we don't need to do anything there. Okay. What do we do now? Okay, we have all our routes. We don't have a common HTML. So, right, so we need to do that. Oh, something else. So this load tasks, right? This needs to be moved into the to-dos view as well. So let's move it from there. Go to the to-dos view, and we can just place it in this main div there. Back to index. So we're going to look on the main template now. Div class of our container. Create a jumbotron with a padding. Right, and here we'll put an H2. Say my task application. And from here, we want to create a couple of links. Right, we want to create a link back to our home view. We also want to be able to log in. Okay, so href to our login view. All right.
Does home need the extra exclamation point?
Yes, I forgot that. Thank you. That would have drove me crazy. Yeah. And and I'm missing the slash here.
I think this is what's happening at Twitter right now. I think they're going through all the code and refactoring.
Most likely.
My
Yeah.
guess is there's a lot of messed up code that they have to fix.
They're gonna be fixing a lot for sure.
The average person doesn't know this.
It amazes me why a service like Twitter would need, like, I don't know how many employees they have, like 40,000 employees, or I'm sorry, not 40,000, 4,800 employees, I believe.
They had 77,000.
7,000, yeah, okay. It just boggles my mind why a application like Twitter would need 7,000 employees. That is just absurd to me. But then again, I'm not there, so maybe there is some insane amount of AI going on or something that they need that many. Well, yeah, I'm sure not all of them are
Machine learning.
dev positions. I'm sure there are QA and all that stuff, but I'm sure a good number of those are actually dev positions, right?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, I just don't understand that. Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. All right, so Jumbotron, padding of height of 3. And this is where we want our views to be injected, right? So you're gonna have our ng view, yeah. And then we're gonna have the common thread, right? So class of Jumbotron, again, padding of 3, and we're gonna put something like small copyright 2022 CS157 something. Okay. All right, so if I did everything correctly, then when we load our application, we should see our home view. Do we have anything in the home view? No, we don't. Okay, so let's put something in the home view. Okay, we'll put an H2 there. We'll say welcome. And let's put a key element here. We'll say something like to use this app, you need to have an account. Another paragraph element. If you already have an account, use the login button above or the register for a register or not over that or register for a new account. Okay, and we want the login text to be an actual link to that view. So we can do that, href, pound exclamation, login. It's going to be our login view. And we also want to link to registration view. So href, exclamation, register. There's that view. There we go. Okay, that should be good enough. Let's load it. Fingers crossed. And we don't see our phone. Okay, what's going on? Okay, I should not have done all that at once because I knew something was not going to work. So let's see here. Okay, something was blocked. MIME type mismatch content. And what? Something to control. Resource from this block due to MIME type. Shouldn't really be blocked. But I don't think that is it. Load file from script source. Controllers to do.j. It has to do with the other one. But this is not the home view. So something is not right. Okay, let's see if we can spot.
Why does it say my type text when it's a JSON?
It's
No,
not.
it's not JSON.
It's not JSON, right? This is a script file.
It's a docs.
This one is the to-dos dot .js. So it's this file here. Okay, let's see here. Oh, to-dos dot. I forgot the dot there. I wonder if that was the error. Okay, our home view is still not loading. All right, let's see what's the error now. So it's an internal error in AngularJS, which tells me that something with our home view. So line views, home.html, home.html, controller, home controller. That is good. Having name controller. Our main, I think our main controller is not working. Let's go back to the index, make sure the name is at the top. It is. Controller, main controller. ng view. Correct script. Oh, ng route. Oh no, we don't need ng route. Oh yes, we do. That's what we're missing. ng route. I didn't follow my advice. So when you include the script, you have to include that there. So we're missing this ng route here. And let's load it again. There we go. Okay, so now we are getting our home view. Okay, so clicking on login is going to give us a login view. Clicking on register is going to give a register view. And to load our tasks, right, we're going to have to, for now at least, we're going to have to go directly to that view. So to-dos, and there we go, our tasks still load, right? This still works. Add a new one, everything looks great. Okay, perfect. Okay, so that just leaves us with the login and the register views. So let's go ahead and work on those. So let's go to the login view. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste some HTML that I already have for this view just to save time, but we'll go over it. Okay, so this is just a form element here. Has some text at the top. Please sign in. It has two fields: email and password, and then a button to sign in. The sign in button is gonna call a function called login, and any validation errors that you're gonna have are gonna be displayed in this div that has an ng show. And whatever we put in the status is going to show the status. And then down at the bottom, it's going to say if you don't have an account, you can then go to this link to create an account. All right, so let's refresh this and take a look at that. Okay, so that HTML that I just put created this view here. Okay, so this is going to allow us to sign in. And let me also paste in the registration view, which is essentially expect, right? Form, first name, last name, email, password, the event, and the status, right? So that's going to be under this view. Okay, so that only leaves our controllers for those two views. So let's work on the registration view first. Not the view, I'm sorry, the registration controller. So that meant. So that is the register controller right over here. Okay, let's handle that button event. So scope dot register anonymous error function. We need to create a registration object. So register object. So do let registration info. We're going to need the first name. And we're going to read that from the scope. In the field, first name. We're going to need a last name. We're going to need email. And the password. Right, now that we have our object, we need to make an AJAX call to our register input. We're going to use the HTTP service to do a post request to the URL, API, user, register. We're going to send it over this registration info object, not leg info, it should be reg info. Reg info, right? And then we use that syntax of then. So if the request was a success, then we're going to get back a result. And here we can say registration was a success. And we need to redirect user to the login view, right? Once they have created their account, let's send the user directly to that view so then they could sign in. So all we do is we do window location, and we'll change the view to login. It's going to change our view. And then let's handle any catch errors. So function result. Now, if we do have an error, we're going to assign that error to the status of the scope. And that's going to display for us. All right, let's see if this works. Refresh it, register. Let's do Smith, jsmith@gmail.com. Password needs to be, I know it needs to be a strong password. Actually, we don't think it needs to be a strong password. So let's just do ABC123 for jsmith, ABC123. You get that? Okay. And as you see, it took us directly to the sign-in page, which tells us that our code was good, right? It was a success, and it took us to the sign-in page. Okay, so now let's pick the code for the sign-in page. So our login controller. Okay, so what we're going to do is we need to handle the login event, login get that an event. So that was login. It's going to be an anonymous error function. Okay, we need to create our login object. Let login info. We're going to need the email, which we're going to read from the scope, and the password, which we're going to read from the scope. Right now, we need to just make an AJAX call to our login input. So we refer to the HTTP service. We're going to make a post request to API user login. We're going to send it the login info object. We're going to have a result, and if we get back the result in the then, it means that the login was a success, right? So login was a success. So we need to do two things here, right? If you recall on module 10, right? Module 10, we need to store the JSON web token and then change the view. So let's go ahead and store it. So we're going to store it in session storage. We're going to use the set item. We're going to store it in JWT. It's going to be accessed in the result .data.jwt. Okay, and then two, we need to change the view to the to-dos, right? Because now that the user has logged in, they can view the to-dos application. So we're going to window location, to-dos. And attach the result. Scope, status, result, data. Okay, so let's see what happens here. We already have an account, so let's click on login, jsmith@gmail.com, abc, let's put an incorrect one first, so just abc. Sign in, okay, put invalid user password, abc123. And that did not work because I forgot the explanation. All right, so let's go ahead and try that again. Login, jsmith@gmail.com, abc123, and perfect. It takes us to the task application. Now there's one more thing we need to do, and we need to secure our endpoints. Right, so if the user tries to go to our task application without logging in, we don't want them to be able to either load the application, add any, or not load the application, or they should not be able to get a list of the to-do items. They shouldn't be able to add a new item, edit, or delete. Right? So we need to secure all of these now because the user has to be logged in to use this. Right? Which is not the case right now, right? So if the user just loads the to-dos view, they'll see it, they'll be able to see the tasks and add new tasks. Let's go ahead and secure our endpoints. Right, so that's going to be under our Node.js. Okay, so I think it's a good time right now to point out that there is a high level for the potential of confusion at this point, because in your application, in Applet application, you have both server components as well as client components. And it's important to know which ones are which, so you don't get confused. Whatever is in the public folder is going to be the client side of the application, right? Whatever is in here is all client side. Whatever is outside of this folder is all server side, right? So server side, server side, server side, server side, right? This does not get sent to the client. This is all on the server. Right? The public folder is client. So this is our client SPA index.html. Okay, I just wanted to point that out. All right, so we need to secure our endpoints. We need to secure our tasks endpoints. So we're going to go to the to-dos.js here, and we're going to add auth user. Yeah, right. And if you recall, we did this in module 2. So this is going to secure our main get, so we won't be able to retrieve any task items. We shouldn't be able to retrieve single task items either. So auth user. We shouldn't be able to create task items. So auth user. We should not be able to update auth user. And we should not be able to delete auth user. Okay. So at this point, if we reload the application, I believe, stop it and start it again. Let's see what happens if we open up a new tab and go directly to the to-dos. Okay, so we're getting this undefined. We're not seeing our task list because our endpoints are now secure. You need to be logged in to see this. So let's go ahead and log in first. So jsmith@gmail.com, abc123. And we're still getting undefined. And here's the reason why. Because when we logged in, let's go to our client here and our login controller. When we logged in, all we did is we stored the JSON web token in session storage under the JWT key. However, we're not sending this to the server with each request. That part we don't have, right? So if you don't send a JSON web token to the server is not going to know that we have the token. Right? So we need to fix that. So we're going to go back to our to-dos controller here. And there is an extra parameter in this, in all of these actually, and that is where we can provide that information. So under the load tasks here, we are going to, in this get request, add an object right after the endpoint URL. And in this object, let's bring it down to the next line, like that. We are going to provide the request. So the request header is going to be an object of its own. And this object is going to have the authorization header, and is going to be there appended with the JSON web token, which is in the session storage. We're going to use get item, and we're going to get our JSON web token like that. I believe I have an extra query base there. No, I didn't have an extra query base. I do need that. Right. Okay, there we go. So this object needs to be added to all of our requests. Okay. So it needs to be added there. Needs to be added to the remove. Needs to be added to our patch, which is right after the object. All right. And finally, we want to be able to log the user out, right? If the user is logged in, we want to log out. So let's go to the to-dos and place a logout button. Just place it all the way here. So ng click. We are going to log out. Right, and we need to handle that. So back to our controller. Back to our controller, and we need to add the logout. Let's see where we are here. It's going to be right over here. So log out. Scope.logout minus our function. And all we're going to do is we're going to refer to session storage, and we're going to remove that JSON web token. And once we remove it, let's actually redirect the user back to the home. So window location, back to the home view. One more thing here, and that is if the user loads the to-dos view without logging in, let's just redirect the user to the admin view, right? There's no point in the user not being able to see the tasks in there, right? Since they're not logged in. So you can do that in this load tasks event. And what we're going to do is do a quick check. And so if the session storage, right, does not have the JSON web token, right, if that's undefined, then let's redirect the user in their location back to the login. You've been a bad user and you need to log in, right? That will work. Okay, so let's give it a try. Let's refresh. Let's try loading directly, so to-dos. And as you see, it took us directly to the login page, right? Because we're not logged in. So let's log in, jsmith@gmail.com, abc123. We have logged in, but we still don't see tasks. Why is that? Authorization, make sure I spelled everything correctly. There. Here's, let's do some debugging here. We need to find out why this is not working. So when this load tasks gets called, let's alert out the JSON web token just to see if we have it at that point. Let's refresh. Is ABC123. Yes, we do have it. Okay. Oh, it's being called 2 times, I believe. Something strange is going on. Let me see. Load tasks.
So I found this refactoring, it's really hard to do, to take out, to cut and paste
Yes, it is.
within. So what I did, I actually just deleted, or I didn't delete, I started from the scratch. I got the basic framework working, then I cut and paste the code in.
Yeah.
So there's so many parentheses and brackets. You can make a mistake and it won't tell you.
Very easily. Yep. Very easily. And that's interesting here. What is going on? I did see the JSON web token when the view loaded, but then I got an undefined, which is strange. So let's see here. If we try loading this again or refreshing this again, okay, we saw the token and we're getting undefined. Which let me try doing something here. Put an else statement here, and I'll encapsulate this whole thing with an else. I think this is what's causing the error. Let's see here. Let's refresh this. Okay, undefined. So we need to log in. So jsmith@gmail.com, abc123, undefined. I didn't see my errors on the server. Look at that. Cannot read property split of undefined. I think my server is crashing. That's what's going on. My server is crashing because of that JSON web token that's being that's undefined, that's being sent to the to my endpoint. I have a feeling that's what's going on. So what we'll do, let's go to the login view directly and make sure still no errors. jsmith@gmail.com, abc123, login, and we are getting the undefined. Okay, controllers. Session storage, set item, JSON web token, JW data.jwt. That's where we're storing it. Yeah, we do get the token because I did see it. These are the kind of errors and bugs that just drive you crazy. Session storage, get item. Let me check for syntax errors. Unauthorized, sure. It should be unauthorized because we didn't send the JSON web token. So that makes sense. Okay, so let's log in. Okay, so we have our AJAX call here, which is a get request. And are we setting the header? Are we sending the header? The authorization header. Request headers should be here. Do we see authorization? No, we don't see authorization. So obviously it's not gonna work if you don't have, if it doesn't send the headers. So that means that something is going on with here and I'm missing the S. Headers. Oh boy, I wasted so much time with that. Okay. All right. So it's not header, it's headers. Okay. So now it should work. We are good now. Let's reload this. Open it up in a new tab. Log in. ABC123. And there we go. Okay. Now we should be able to add and remove tasks. Ooh, that didn't work. So we still have some error with the add tasks here. So let's see what it is. Oh, I put this in the wrong location. All right. This one should be fine for the delete, and the patch is good too. All right, one last time. Reload, reload. Let's add a task. Here we go. Delete a task. There we go. Okay, we're done here. Okay, I know we're past 8 o'clock, and I did say that I was going to go over past 8 today because I really want to get that application deployment part included in today's lecture, because on the 28th, we are going to lose the version of Heroku. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to deploy this application to Heroku. There are two ways we can deploy the application to Heroku. One is we can put it in GitHub. If you put it in GitHub, it's a pretty straightforward way to then send it over from GitHub to your Heroku account. The second option is if you run Git on your local machine, you can also deploy that way, and that's how we're going to do it today. Okay, so I need to make a couple of changes to my application before we do that. So let me do that. So first of all, if we go to our main index.js, we are going to use a hard port of 3000. When we deploy our applications to a cloud environment, that's a shared cloud environment, we cannot specify the port because there are not just your application on that server, there could be a lot more applications on the server, and each one needs to have a unique port. So if we allow the web developers to define the ports, we are going to eventually have ports where two applications use the same port, and that can't work. So we need to get the port from the hosting environment. So the hosting environment is going to provide us with a port. And that's going to be stored in the process environment, process.emd.port. Okay. So this process.emd are key value pairs that we can define on the server that remain on the server. They're not part of your application code. They are stored on the server. So here what we're saying is read that port from the server because the server is going to have that port. Okay. However, if we do this in here, we're going to get, if we try to hit run, it's not going to work. Oh, I guess it is going to work. So I guess they have fixed this bug, but this did not work before because Replit did not have an idea of what that was, but I guess it does now. But if we want to just define our own, we could do that by going to this secrets tab and putting port as the key and the value of 3000 and add that there. Okay, so this name of port corresponds with that name of port there. Okay. So this should still work. Okay. The other thing we want to be able to store in the process environment is the DB connection string. That is because we do not want our connection string to be in our code because it has usernames, passwords, and things like that in there. And if you're going to be using this code with more than one dev, you might share it. People might see the code, and you don't want your DB main application DB connection string to be in here. So what we're going to do is we're going to define a MongoDB and put that connection string in there. So I'm gonna Control C that. Actually, I'm gonna get rid of it from there, and we're gonna store it in a key called MongoDB. So we're gonna go in there into secrets, MongoDB, put our connection string there, and add it to here. Now keep in mind that we are defining these keys in this applet environment, which means that when we deploy our application to the Heroku service, we have to redefine these over there because this does not go with our current application. This remains in this environment. So by making that change, we should still be able to run our application, and everything still looks fine. One last thing we need to also put in there is our ISON web token key, right? Because we don't want that to be in our code either, right? We don't want this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to be there. So we're going to remove that and process, environment, and we'll just put something like JWT key. We also use this key in the auth user. So I already actually have it here. So let me remove it from there. Okay, so we have JWT key, right? Did I use key? I just want to make sure I did the same thing. Let me see. Yeah, JWT key. So for our application to still work here, let's add it to here. So JWT key and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll just keep it the same. And our application should still work. Just make sure. And it does. Okay. Okay. That is all. Those are all the changes we need to make. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to export my project as a zip file. And for that, I need to change my sharing to my desktop. So let me do that. Okay. All right. So let's download this as a zip. And yeah, we'll store it there. That's fine. Okay. So let me open up the downloads folder. All right, and this is the file here. So let me open that up. And I need to create a folder of my own for this deployment. So I'm going to open up my C drive, and I'm going to create a new folder here called Task App. And I'm going to place all of these folders except for node modules and this UPM. That's not part of our project. Oh, as well as this applet file. That's not, we don't need that either. Okay, so the reason why we don't need node modules is because node modules is going to be installed on the deployment server, on the actual server, and it might be a different OS and whatnot. So it needs to be reinstalled there. All right, so let's grab that and unzip that into our task app folder. Now, before we can deploy, we need to make one last change once we have the code on our machines. With Heroku, it wants the main node file to be called server.js instead of index.js. So what we need to do is rename this index to server.js. And we also need to make sure it reflects in this package.ison file as well. So let me open that up, and under main here, we need this to be called server.js. So I'll save that, and there we go. Okay, so my application is ready to be deployed. So we'll open up a new terminal window that's in that folder. We don't need this anymore. Okay, so now let's go to Heroku.com, and I will sign in. Looks like I'm already signed in. Okay, so I went ahead and signed in, and I currently do not have any application, so we need to create a new application. Let me actually sign out and sign back in so we get everything. Okay, so we are here. We're going to log in. And since I don't have any applications deployed, it's going to ask me to create a new app. So we're going to click on create new app. It's going to ask me for app name. Let's put CS157 task app. And this name is available. And click on create. All right, so that creates our application. Now we need to deploy our application, which means we need to get the source files from our computer into the Heroku environment. Now it's going to take you directly to this deploy tab. And like I said, there are 2 ways to deploy, or there might be 3 ways to deploy. There is the way of GitHub. So we can put our application in GitHub and then click on connect to GitHub. It'll connect to your account. You select your application and it'll just send it the files from GitHub to Heroku, and you're done. What we're going to do is we're going to use this Heroku Git instead, right? And for this, we need to install the Heroku CLI, the command line interface. So I actually have that installed already, but let me just go through it with you here. So under install Heroku CLI, we're going to download, I'm on Microsoft Windows, so I'm going to download the 64-bit installer. And I already have it installed, so it's right over here. So let's run this. Okay, so when we run this, we're going to leave everything as default. Next, next, next. Okay, one other thing we're going to need is we're going to need the local version of Git as well. So if you don't have Git installed, you need to install that as well. And you can do that by going to this Git installation link right over here. That takes you to the Git page. And from here, you can select which version of OS you have to install it. And since I already have it installed, I'm not going to go through it here, but you can just leave everything as default when you go ahead and install this as well. All right, so you need Git and you need this Heroku CLI, which work together. So the Heroku CLI is gonna take your Git source control repository, and it's going to allow you to select which commits you want to send over, and it'll send those commits over. All right, we'll go over that. All right, so once we do that, once we have that installed, let's make sure we have Git and the Heroku CLI installed. So I'm going to do Git -- version. And you want to make sure you get something like Git version and you get some version number. We also want to make sure we have the Heroku CLI installed. So Heroku -- version. And okay, we have Heroku installed as well. Heroku 753. All right, so this is, now that we have those 2 installed, let's follow the directions that they have here. So the first step is we're going to issue the command Heroku login. So this is going to log you in. Heroku login. Right, this is going to just open up a web browser window for me. It's on my screen number 2. And I'm going to log in with the same account that I have. And as soon as I do that, you'll see here it gets logged in as my account there. All right, so that's step 1. Next, I need to create a local Git repository for my application. And that's what these 2 steps are going to be. Actually, that's what this step is, this Git init. So we're going to do Git init. Okay, so that's going to create our empty Git repository. Then what we need to do is we need to set the remote repository for our local repository to be Heroku's application name, right? And that's what this command is going to do. So we're going to do Heroku git remote. So we're setting the remote repository to the name of the application, CS157 task app. Make sure I got that spelled correctly. Okay, hit enter and okay. We got an error. Remote. Did I spell that? Oh, I put get remote instead of git remote. Okay. Okay. Git remote. Okay, there we go. Set git remote Heroku to this path here. And now what we need to do is we need to add our source files to our local Git repository. And that's what this git add dot is going to do for us. So git add dot, we're going to add all of our HTML, JS files to our Git repository. And we then need to commit. So git commit, and we put what we are committing for here, and we can put whatever we want. This is this is for deployment. Okay, as you can see, it did a commit on all of our files that we have. And then finally, this git push command is going to push our Git repository to Heroku. So we're going to do git push Heroku main. And what this is doing is this is going to push the repository. We got an error, push rejected. Why did it reject? Failed to compile Node.js app. Okay. Oh, okay. I forgot to do an npm install, I believe. I did say I need to install the node packages, dependencies and everything. So we do need to do that. Oh, wait a second. To use yarn, delete the yarn file, JSON log file. Two different log files. Oh, that's the error. 2 different log files found. So we have a yarn log and package log. Okay. So we need to remove the yarn log file. Okay, and do another commit. Okay, and we try it again. So let's do that. Git push Heroku main. Hopefully we get no errors. Yes, no errors. Okay, installing dependencies. All right, looks like we are going to be good here. All right, build successful. Perfect. Okay, So once this is done, we're going to get the URL of our deployed application. Okay. And we have successfully deployed our application, and we can take a look at it from this URL, CS157 task app.herokuapp.com. So let's load that into a new window, and here we go. Here's our application that we just deployed, hosted on Heroku. Let's make sure it still works. It's not going to work, and we should know the reason why it's not going to work. It will not work. Why is it not working? Well, remember our environment vars that we set, right? These things here, the JSON Web Token key, the MongoDB connection string, and the port number. Well, we don't need this port number, but we do need the JSON Web Token key and the MongoDB connection string. So now we have to do the equivalent of what we did here in Heroku. So we're going to go under settings here and click on this config vars area, reveal config vars, and we have the key value pairs here. All right, so we need the MongoDB, and this needs to be our connection string, which we have here. So let's copy that and paste that in there. And we need our JSON Web Token key, and that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we'll add that there as well. So again, why are we doing this? It's because we don't want this information in our code files, because our code files is something we could share, right? We can put in an public repository, share it and whatnot, but we don't want it hosted. We want this to be in the hosted service location, right? In this case, Heroku. All right, so we added those. I don't think we need to restart the application. Let's refresh it and try to log in. J Smith, ABC123, and there we go. Logged in, and it loaded our tasks. Okay, so one last step I want to do is, how do we now connect this application to our own domain name? Okay, so I'm going to go and show you how to do that. So I have a domain name called, this is I own, called codingbootcamp.cloud. Okay, this is something I own. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a subdomain that will then load this application. So we want something like tasks.codingbootcamp.cloud, and when we go to this URL, we want to load our application, instead of CS157 task app.herokuapp.com. Okay, so we're going to go under the settings page once more, and under the domain area, domains, we're going to click on add domain. And where it says your domain, we're going to put what we want, right? We want tasks.codingbootcamp.cloud. Now, before you do this, you have to own this domain, codingbootcamp.cloud. If you don't own it, it won't work. Okay, so you do need to own it. So we're going to do that and click on next. And this is going to give us a DNS target or a CNAME, as they say, and that we're going to use that in a bit here. So this is that CNAME address. Okay, so now I'm going to go to my domain provider, and if you don't have a domain, if you do want a domain, you can use services like domain.com. There are tons and tons of websites that sell domains. The one I have is under GoDaddy.com. So I'm going to go to GoDaddy.com. I'm going to log in. And I'm going to do this off screen because I have my personal domains on here as well. But I will show you how to set the DNS in a bit here. All right, so we're going to go to okay. So let me see, make sure I'm in the right location. Okay, so let me bring you back here. Okay, so I went ahead under my account. This is under my domain of codingbootcamp.cloud. And I'm going to click on this manage DNS here. So I'm going to click on manage DNS. And what I want to do here is I want to add a new CNAME. CNAME is just a subdomain. So I'm going to add a subdomain to my codingbootcamp.cloud domain. And that subdomain is going to be tasks. Right? So I'm going to click on add. I'm going to choose the type of my DNS record to be a CNAME. And I want this to be tasks, right? The same name that I put in Heroku, right? This part here, tasks. All right, and I'm going to need this DNS target here. So I'm going to copy that. And that DNS target will go in this value field here. And I'm going to click on add record. All right, as you can see, the CNAME of tasks has been now added to my codingbootcamp.cloud domain. So now it's going to take some time to go out on the web and update the DNS servers and everything like that, but usually happens pretty quickly. So let's try it. It might just work. Tasks.codingbootcamp.cloud. And it was quick. So there we go. All right, so now we have connected our Heroku application to our own domain name. In this case, tasks.codingbootcamp.cloud. This tasks here, just keep in mind that this is a subdomain, and the www is just a subdomain, right? So we could have simply put www.codingbootcamp.cloud as well. Okay, so there isn't anything special with the www. That is just a subdomain, just like tasks is. Okay.
So I'm curious about this subdomain. So it's free, right? Once I have
once you have the domain, you can have as many as you want. Yes.
So in theory, I can change one site, which is pure PHP, MySQL, as I'm working on the Node.js stuff. When it works completely, I can just redirect.
We do that all the time. That's how it's done.
Oh, okay.
That's how it's done. Actually, the way we do it usually is we have the main www dot, in this case, let's say coding bootcamp, and then what we do is we create a dev dot coding bootcamp. We create like a staging environment, stg dot coding bootcamp, and each one of these subdomains will go to a different instance of the application. So when we want to give something a try, we put it on the dev environment, and we can see it by going to dev.codingbootcamp.com.
So in theory, it could go to AWS.
Right? What was that? I'm sorry.
Well, in theory, I can have a subdomain that goes to AWS anywhere.
Yeah, you can. Well, no. A subdomain is not a redirect. So please keep that in mind. It's not the same as a redirect. We're not redirecting here. So this address that we put here, this DNS target, this is not a redirect. So for example, we can't put let me see here. I don't want to give you the wrong information just based on my understanding, but I may be wrong here. So let me,
So I'm trying to find a way to preserve the emails that one provider. But then when
oh
I'm
yeah,
done-
that's how you could use the DNS, right, right. So if you have your emails going under your domain name under a service provider, since you own that domain name, you can move to a new service provider. And as long as you change your DNS to hit the new service provider, then you should still receive emails on that new service provider.
how about keeping old emails that are
Oh, okay.
10, 20
That's a different, that's a different story because those emails are not stored on your domain. Those emails are stored on the service provider's servers. So you
Yeah,
would need to
that's
export that out, right? And then somehow import it into a new service provider, which is the reason why we go with Gmail,
yeah.
Yahoo is just, we don't want to deal with all that stuff,
Okay.
right? So,
So if you have time, there's another way of doing GitHub, which does not require any installation of software. It's really easy.
yeah, you would go to go to github.com, you create a new repository, you put your application in that repository, and then so can you actually deploy from GitHub, or do you need to go to
Yes,
Heroku? Oh, so you could do it from,
Yes.
okay,
from
that's
GitHub.
nice.
So
So you need to have a Heroku account though, right?
yes, so it's the same. So if you bring up that Heroku page of all the options, one is to GitHub, and you just have to connect it to.
Yeah.
So if you upload to GitHub, 10 seconds later, it's at Heroku.
Ah, I see. Okay, so when you connect this to GitHub, then you do your deployment from there now, right?
Yeah.
You go to GitHub, or when you deploy your changes to GitHub, they get sent over to Heroku.
Yes, I guess Heroku takes.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
So
Yeah, that will save a lot of time. Well, that will save some time, right? Because it saves you the time of doing this whole, push and commits and all that stuff. So,
but if students want a way to use GitHub, I without using any push or any of that stuff, it's really easy.
Yeah.
They actually they give you a drag and drop option.
oh, okay, nice. Yeah, well, that drag and drop options and stuff, that's all doing the command line stuff that
Yes.
we just did, right?
Yeah, it is, but you don't have to install anything.
You don't need to see it. Yeah. Well,
use
here,
both.
what we're doing is we want to show you what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Rather than just drag and drop. But yeah, I mean, I think once you see the way we deploy using the Heroku Git, then moving to the UI way of doing it, at least you know what's going on at that point, right?
The commands are about the same.
Yeah.
And commit push.
Yeah.
It's about the same,
Right.
if not identical.
And that's it. So we have gone from an application in Weblet to the cloud, Heroku, to connecting to our own domain name. Right? And that's pretty much it. It concludes the course. So this is considered a full stack application. We have both client server components using the mean stack, right? MongoDB, Express, Node, and AngularJS. Yes, sure. We can do that. Give me that ledger. All right. All right, everyone. I know we went past way past 8 o'clock, but I did want to get this done before the Heroku free service ended. So What we're gonna do next week, just want to go over that quickly, is we're just gonna help you with your final project. If you have any questions on that, I'll also help you with your endpoints for that. So it'll get you going. All right. Hope everyone has a great Thanksgiving and stay safe. We'll see you then. I'm gonna stop the recording now.